Hi, Kelly. So,
Hi.
hi. So, I'm going to be introducing Kelley Springer. Kelly is known as Butterfly Woman. Dragons came to her 25 years ago and began to communicate with her. Working as an international healer for the past 30 years, the dragons coming into her healing practice offered expansion and gifts, and she became a dragon communication teacher as a natural progression of work with dragons. So, Kelley, we're looking forward to your presentation and thank you.
Well, hello. Thank you so much, Kevin and Barbara, for bringing us all together. This is, for me, a very prophetic moment. So, for me, that's what has been my life with dragons. One prophecy after another fulfilled. There are prophecies on the earth about us being here at this time to fulfill prophecies. So, I'll share a little bit about me so some of you who've never heard of me might know me better. Um, I'm a I live in Colorado right now. I've grown up in America, and I was raised in a beautiful family that loved me and who are part of my life. And I value that so much because it created my foundation. I was raised in a Christian family, so for me, it was a real eye opener to have dragons show up in my healing temple to talk to me because it was like, who are you? So I'm going to tell you about that. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my awakening, how I started working with them, and how they led me into understanding I was here to do work with them on a much more global level than just with myself alone. So I'll share about some of the things I discovered, and then I will share some messages with you from them. So I drew two dragons before this event started, and I put them on the thread on Facebook. You might have seen them, and if not, some of you might look for that later. But I'll talk to you about those two dragons as well. So I work with a lot of dragons, more than we can count. But to begin my process, I didn't know anything about dragons. I went through a spiritual awakening that started when I was 3 through trauma. I had an NDE experience, near death experience, and then I buried it. And I didn't awaken that again until I was 30. When I came into my 30s, I began to have mass, very accelerated awakening. I met a shaman. I went on my first vision quest, but he didn't teach me. What was interesting was I met him, and a week later, he usually put people through 6 weeks of training. A week after meeting him, he invited me to go questing without any training. And he said, "You're advanced, you can come." And that's when my ancestors showed up. I have Cherokee ancestors and other Native American ancestors that suddenly were with me. There was a woman and a man, and they were both teaching me to remember things about myself, about my lineage, about my family. And my own family didn't remember a whole lot about our Native roots. So when your indigenosity is waking up and you're beginning to remember something about who you are, it's a little bit challenging when you don't have a village of support around you that recognizes what's going on with you. So elders were really important to me when I went through that. And my elders coming in really helped me to ground into myself as I woke up my gifts, because my gifts were really natural. I didn't study Reiki. I was always looking and seeking for ways to understand life and myself and life around me. And one of the things that was most significant for me at that time was I kept being told to do things by other people, like, you need to ground, or you need to be in your body, or you need to know who you are. And I would go, great. How do I do that? And they would, oh, meditate, or you might take this class. And I would go do those things. And then I wasn't finding that I was really landing. So something was missing for me, and I was searching for it. And I needed to find a certain key. So when I went through my mass awakening, my grandfather in the spirit world really helped me a lot. One of the most important things he taught me was how to self reflect, Because when you have a consciousness about a thing, like you see something and you recognize it, oftentimes that is a sign that you've experienced it. You know it because you know it. So he taught me to work with my inner knowing, but not from a place of projection, like, oh, I hate it when people yell at each other, or they get violent, or they lose their temper, or they do this or that. So what he said to me was, when you feel really uncomfortable with something, go look for it in you. That was the biggest gift he gave me because it accelerated my growth exponentially. Because if I saw something I didn't like, I could go find it in me and work on healing it. So I accelerated my own healing rapidly. My guides, my elders they were like this. Wow, we've never seen anyone grow as fast as you. And I was like, huh, okay. News to me, because I don't even know what that means because I'm so busy being in it. So for me, it was just like that, a continuum of growth, and it hasn't stopped. I'm growing now, right now, here in your presence. And that's the beauty of the moment. So we get to all be growing together. Someone was writing earlier about feeling overwhelmed by all the songs. And, this is a song, what we're all singing together, the frequency of us gathered in this moment. So I want to give you this. You all have a soul to self, a self to yourself, soul light, connected to the source. And when you can just drop into your hearts with me here for a moment, take a breath in through your nose, out through your mouth, and let yourself drop into the earth and let yourself connect to the source, the heart of the source, and call down from your higher light a vibration of you into your heart and bloom it. And as you breathe, just allow it to expand, and it will push out anything that is not like itself. Hmm. Now, I feel the energy with all of us, and when some of you are shaking, I have empathic superpowers from being wide open since childhood. So for me, I have had just this expanded awareness of consciousness. And I hear from people a lot who have worked with me that I put pieces together for them because of what I did in ciphering a map for integration. So my first steps out into becoming a healer was finding out who I was. And doing so, I met my God self. I went on a vision that with first vision quest. I had a massive awakening there to meeting my higher light body. And I spent a year merging with it in meditation. And then I had another awakening in a cave. And the Octurians came. They were amazing. And I remembered them. And I met Sirens and Palladians and all these other races of families of light in our solar system and in our universe. So I was like, oh, wow, these are like beautiful beings, and I know all of them. And when I met myself in that moment, they were showing me that I come from an angelic family. And my particular angelic family was from Venus, which is right here. So I was like, just grinning ear to ear as Sandy spoke about the Venusians. So a lot of the masters and the energies that work with the earth plane are coming from the masters of Venus that are part of our universe and our solar system and one of our closest sister planets. So when I talk about angelics, we're talking about realm dwellers. So there are beings that exist in the dimensions and then beings that exist in the realms. The dragons told me that we were going to all come together at some point and do what we're doing right now, share stories. So this is my prophetic moment with you, is like, oh, wow, we're doing it. This is it. One of the things that they said was to share with all of you a perspective, a way of holding this moment so that you can understand the different stories. All of us have had different memories and experience and awakening what our relationship to the dragons are. And I'll get into a little bit more about that for me with you in a moment. But I want to share this message from them from long ago that they gave me for this now moment with you. They said you can think of a story on a linear plane where it's my story is different from your story and these stories don't match. If they don't go together, then I have to pick one. So I want to invite you to drop that like to the floor. Like poof, just let that go. And I want you to think about this universe like this big ball, and all the dimensions and realms that create the entire universe we are now in have all of these layers and aspects to them. And when you hold that sphere in your consciousness, if you enter into this moment as this weaving of a sphere in a universe rather than just us sitting on earth, we're sitting here together holding the sphere. As you hear our stories, you can feel into the sphere and you'll notice where those stories land. Oh, that's on Earth. Oh, that one's happening over here in Andromeda. Oh, that happened over there with the Sirens. Oh, that happened with the galactic wars someone else was talking about. So you'll find every story we share, even in our differences, has a place to land in the sphere of this universe. And we are all carrying memories of our experiences there. So for me, I'll go back to my own story here and invite us all to stay more open in our consciousness to hear the stories spherically. Think round. So let's see. So, in my awakening and coming into knowing who I was as an angelic soul, I began to awaken gifts, and a whole temple of light woke up in my body. And that's how I began to be a healer. I left a career, I stepped away from all of my other drives and concerns, and I decided to be a holy woman. In being holy, I wanted to embrace going into a place of deep listening. So I did this in 1994. By 1995, I was ordained, and I started my ministry. My ministry is not about religion; it is about spirituality, and I began a practice called Love, Wisdom, Power: Paths to Wholeness. My focus is on deep core integration, working with the hidden unconscious, and understanding how to be a whole human being. All of us are always becoming whole. We're becoming more whole right now. So it's not like an end. There is not a finality to anything in life. Even the word mastery is tricky. And when I took the name White Dragon Master for this event, it was because my students and friends in New Zealand called me that. And the dragons told me to. I was like, well, what do I call myself related to you? And they said, well, take the name they gave you. And I was like, okay. But I have to tell you, a lot of people see mastery as a completion, and I want you to know there's nothing ever complete. So for me, my oars are in the water. This canoe is paddling. I'm going forward, always learning, wanting to know more. And if you're smart, you'll never stop doing that. Don't put your oars away. Look at our earth. So, as I became a really good emotional healing integrator, I learned about ancestral healing at the very beginning of my practice from my ancestors and my guardians. They taught me how to work with clearing 7 generational hoops. Only for me, over time, for a certain number of years, like for 10 years, I was always working with 7 and 7s to clear the hoop and the bloodline hoop. Okay. When I talk about hoops, I'm talking about your family bloodline. So we were clearing the hoops, with our bloodlines, going as far back on your mother's side, your father's side of your family, clearing the generations of whatever it was that was coming up to be healed. When I first did this, I thought, wow, did my family really heal? The first ancestral clearing I did, I got confirmation from my mother. It was really remarkable. I had this amazing experience with cleansing the bloodlines, and I was really questioning it and having a lot of doubts. And I suddenly got a call and a letter from my mother. She had sent me a message, and she said, I want you to know that healing you did with the family, I felt it and it changed me, and I will never be the same, for the better. So I got my confirmation from my own mother, which was remarkable and absolutely a blessing because it gave me faith. It made me believe more clearly in what I was doing. And all of us need that. You need to be able to have something that shows up to tell you to believe in you. Not that you can't do it by telling yourself that, but most of us are trying to tell ourselves that all the time and not doing it. So if you're like me, you're a doubtful person who has to have reinforcement. And I've been like that since my childhood. So it was like, okay, and I was like that when the dragons showed up. So what happened next was amazing. I learned that we needed to clear the bloodline first so that we got rid of our inheritance of stuff, so that when we came in to do inner child work or past life work, we were more pithy and working on what was actually ours. So I developed a whole integration map that the angels and the all of my guardians, oh, I said dolphins because I work with dolphins, and the dragons told me were what did they call it? They said it was really for us to find our way to our inner song. So they call it the song of returning, not soul retrieval or other names for it. What they showed me is that our souls are perfect, whole, and complete. That where we fracture and where we struggle is in our humanness. In our human experience is where we have things happen that actually make us misstep in relationship to the human agreement that we're born with. In the heart of who we all are, we're born with the same prime directive. The Divine Mother showed it to me like this: you're all born with this innocence that says, I am here to love and be loved. And everything that bumps up against that becomes something that you need to work out. So that's what we're working on. All of us, the pieces and parts of the self, and sometimes from past lives that haven't cleaned up yet, and sometimes from right now and the experience we've had. And as we put it all back together, we become more and more at home in our body. And the goal of that is to really fully connect to your soul light. You can think of your soul light like it has a frequency that sings like a mother penguin to its babies. So when we're looking at integration, the hidden aspects are the hardest to get to. And a lot of healers don't know how to call in the hidden, but it's the song of the soul. So when you do the deepest part of integration and work like a flower from the inside out, you grow yourself up into fully being seated in who you are. So that's what I was being taught. I was being shown and trained to know and understand the map of wholeness, that we are 5-pointed star beings. You're all walking stars. You all have 5 points, your hands and your feet. And for those of you who are born without your limbs, you still are a star. You still have the energy running through you the same way it does in all of us. And the greatest thing we connect to universally that we all have, whether you're handicapped or physically whole and perfect or not, is that we all have hearts. Our heart is our connecting antenna to everything that exists around us. In order to be fully seated in who you are, to make contact with the light of your soul, is to be completely integrated. The reason we integrate is so that you know how to be a self. Self definition comes into this also from trauma. Many of us get fractured. We've lost a way to know who we are. We have to learn the stick and bundle story all over again. It's the most ancient tribal story on the earth, and it is the most important story, and we all need to remember it. So I actually took the stick and bundle story and brought it into my processing work. So it became part of helping people to learn how to have a territory when theirs had been stripped away from them. If you've ever been molested or hurt or violated or even verbally abused, you more than likely don't have a self territory, and it needs to be rebuilt. And there's a way. So the stick and bundle story is this: you take a bundle of sticks, you can't bend them. You take a single stick, you can easily break it. The philosophy of that and the mythology and the understanding and the grokking of that is we are stronger together. We know this and we say it a lot, but to really understand it from a place of being a self and how to understand how to not be alone inside of who you are is very connected to integration also. I find that people who are traumatized and hurt isolate, hide, and they can be in a room full of people and feel all alone. I know many of you feel that way, some of you right now. So I just want to say to your hearts, there's a way to change that. I'm finishing a book. Hopefully it'll help many more. And it's been my endeavor to finish that book in this moment so that I can start teaching and sharing more about this map of wholeness, the song of returning journey and process. Now, my work with dragons, let me get into that. When 1999 came around, I had fully seeded into the teachings of wholeness. I had learned about 7 gates of training in my own inner mystery school, the Temple of Light that woke up in me. The temple I work with came from my angelic family. They said the origin of it was older than them and that went to the source. It's fed by light and the source. but it's like inviting the hand of the divine to hold you and call down all your bodies. So when I would take people in the temple, I could see their origin of soul. I could tell them things about themselves. I could see their animal totems and help explain some of them to them, or I could share how to get there themselves. I prefer to not tell people things. I prefer to share the light so that we come into our own awareness and people do it themselves. I'm all about empowerment, because when you haven't had a personal experience with a thing, it's oftentimes not real for you. So when we talk about things like dragons, this takes people into woo territory where they oftentimes feel very ungrounded in it. But to be grounded, you have to have that foundation. And the foundation of the self is being whole, being fully seated in who you are. Then you can make contact with the true foundation that you're standing on. You have to understand that in the map of wholeness, you have to be able to connect to all life around you, but the earth first, because we're in human bodies right now. So this body has to meet the mama. The earth mother is where all understanding can be found. She's under us. So when we seek to know a thing, we need to go to her. As a first run, go to earth. Yesterday before the call, I went and sat by the river and I went out to the earth. And Gaia was like, finally, you've been up in your head thinking about what you're going to say at this event. I was like, oh, yeah, thanks. So I work with the heart of Gaia and the beautiful diamond of light that comes from the heart of everything. So when I was sitting in 1999, 9 dragons came pouring into my healing room. At that time, there was something very interesting that I had been finding on the bloodline cleansing I was doing with people. I was finding this kind of being that didn't seem like it belonged here. They were little black dragons, and I kept pulling them off people because they were harming us. They weren't evil though, and it was confusing because I was like, wow, where did these guys come from? And I was seeing them tracking through bloodlines and everywhere. And I was like, wow, this is so strange. They sit behind the heart. They they dip into our shadow. They're kind of keeping us from connecting to our hearts fully, and they're feeding on our lower frequency. And it's like that's their food. So I found this entity that was a lower elemental. And I was like, so when this team of dragons showed up, they said, we are the dragons of ascension and light, and we've come to assist you and help you with what you're doing. Well, at that point, I just thought, well, okay, I wonder what that means. And when I talked to my elders, they were all like, are they good? I said, I don't know. I mean, you tell me. And my elder teachers they tuned into them and they said, get to know them. And I was like, okay. They didn't say stay away. So I was like, well, that's a good thing. So as I began to work with them, more and more awoke for me that started tracking back into the lineage for all of us, connected to the earth itself and the fall of humanity. What I saw into was that a lower life form of dragon had made its way into our world through events that took place during the fall. We are healing rifts and energies through these dimensional shifts that took place at that time. In some ways, we see them as a great portal accident. Some people see it as a battle or a war where bombs were going on. And all of those aspects of it are true, but they fit in the sphere. Lower aspects in the lower dimensions of different things that were stacking and tracking. So I began to see into the stack and all of the multiplicity of the events that took place. What I was then put into action on by the dragons was trying and the divine mother of creation, from this universe and the source, was to look for these foreign dragons, but we weren't finding them. Like these little babies where I were finding were the babies, but where are the mother dragons making these babies and why can't I find them? So I was hunting for these dragons and I wasn't hunting them to harm them. I was hunting them to find them, to get them back to where they belonged. And so some beautiful things happened. On the hunt, I just kept praying and meditating. We hit 2008 for another gate for our Earth. Now, whether you know it or not, we talk about the work we're doing on ourselves to evolve, but you have to know the source is evolving us. And at times, it comes along and looks at a part of its creation and goes, "Oh, they're ready for more love." And to me, it's like a blanket of snow coming over your whole body. And then it melts into who you are and you become it. And we are going through transitions like that all the time in our own experience of life. And we don't always know it's happened, but it's happening. So as we get evolved, these beautiful openings happen with our consciousness and we become different and we become more of what we are. So in that moment of seeing I was hunting dragons in 2008, we hit another gate. Boom. The earth was to go through a door of evolution and the source stopped us. And I remember I put my whole entire family in the Temple of Light for 24 hours. And I came out of that moment going, what just happened? And I started connecting to my family of healers around the world. And they were like, we couldn't go through that gate. We were pushed back. So I went to the source and said, what's up? What just happened? And they said, you can't come through with that. And I was like, then help me find them. I yelled at God. And I was like, okay, tell me, where are they? So I gathered my energy and was told to move from Southern California, oh, mid part of California. I was told to move to Oregon. In Oregon, I came together with other healers and people, and I found a dragon on the mountain, sitting on this mountain. It covered 3 hillsides, and it was asleep. Its eyes were closed. It was gigantic. And I was like, wow, you're asleep. Huh. Why are they sleeping? So I started realizing that there was a connection between how the dragons were once here and what happened with this foreign dragon coming in. And I got the whole story and I unwound it and unpacked it. I slowly but surely found the dragons I was looking for over years, over like 10 years of working hard for all of us. I was hunting these dragons. And I also will say this, when I say me, I always mean we. Please know that about me because I am not alone. Many of you were in on the hunt. A lot of you were part of it, and some of you really darn well know it. So I want you to know I know you're here. I know there's more than just myself doing this, and we're all in it together. So at the time, but I had direct experiences with some of this that were really quite incredible. In 2010, we were contacted by a group of indigenous elders who came to us with information about where they were holding a dragon from the fall. They knew that it had been harmful to us. They had caged it in light to protect us from it, but they hadn't been able to figure out how to get rid of it. And when they handed us the information, they said, Spirit told us you'd know how to kill it. And I had to go, okay, hearing that, because I had no intention of killing it. What I did was I knew for some reason, because of my interactions and because of my connections to the spiritual dimensions that are way beyond most of us, I was able to call in what was needed to help create the portal, the doorway, the gate for her and all of her children to get home. We did that activation. It was in 2010, and there was a shift then. I'll tell you a little bit about that. So at that time, the tribal leaders called us and they said, whatever you did, she's gone. Her babies keep appearing in the cave and disappearing. It worked. So that was a very physical, on the ground confirmation from people. When that happened, I also had thought, oh, we asked for all of her kind. And in my mind, I thought, oh, we called in all of them. Well, I was mistaken. And sometimes we do things where we think we've done something, and it's just like when indigenous people had seen these dragons and knew they were harming us and they caged them, they thought they were helping us. They thought they were protecting us. And they were, and to some degree. However, they couldn't stop it from being here or operating from its consciousness here or self propagating. So in that moment, we were stuck and trapped with it. But those of us who were trying to find them couldn't find them because they were hidden from us. So I had to figure that part out. And then we also de evolved. In our de evolution, we were forgetting everything. So, one of the things I learned to say to dragons, and you might want to try this a lot, is I would say, oh, a dragon would say something to me, and I would go, I'm human right now, and we forget everything. So, you're going to have to explain that to me because I don't know what you're talking about. So they would give me a lot of information really fast, and I would get what I needed from them whenever I needed it. So the next thing that happened was I went hunting and got pulled back onto my path, realizing I wasn't done yet. And in 2017, I was fast tracked to New Zealand. When I was in New Zealand, it was because for me, they are the dragon home, the origin home of the dragon people on the earth. One of them. I know there's several. I think Madagascar has one too, but there are places where dragons congregated in birth, and that was one of them. In the Arthurian tales, it's where the Merlin took King Arthur to be initiated to the earthen traditions. To me, the Dragon Island people were the teachers of the Druids anciently. They were very, very knowledgeable about how to connect to all aspects of life. They also renewed an understanding about a ceremony where we merge ourselves with the earth itself as stewards. The true marriage that happens in anybody who is here in their hearts is to walk on the earth as a steward. We're here to be in stewardship with life and life itself. So, my native ancestors called the dragons thunderbirds. I had thunder heart medicine. Whenever I would speak at some point or go tell stories, thunder rolled over our heads when I'd speak my last sentence. So I found out the real way sometimes before I ever met the dragons. But thunder medicine is really about having a great power of love within you to wield. And for me, I didn't want to wield it like a sword where I would stab, punch, hurt, or maim. I wanted to be gentle, but I also wanted to be certain. So I put my sword into a standing position and I merged into a standing sword of light, which means I'm here to hold the truth and the light in the purest way I possibly can from a place of love. And it doesn't matter what creed, tribe, or where you come from. I'm holding a space of love for this entire earth and for everyone in this known universe, along with many, many others. We're here to put a lot back together. We're accelerating right now to another door. It's coming on the 7th. Be aware. You don't have to prepare. It's coming. And when it comes, it's going to come no matter where you are or what you've been doing. The light of creation waves that evolve us are going to keep coming, but we're very aware of this one that's coming 5 days from night now. It was synchronistic that I was the 5th speaker. The fives are all lining up. The time of my talk here in Colorado at the time in London, being the 5th speaker, I added up all the numbers. It all became a 5. It's all about us being the stars that we are. I'm here to be a light in the world, to reflect to you that we are all stars and we're here to shine. You have gifts. Your personal dragons are part of your elemental light. You're right along with all of the other things that are here. Your animal spirits. Now let's talk about that. The earth has 3 kingdoms that are primary to all of us. Minerals first. The rocks were here first. They're the airports to the spirit world, the way to connect to our hearts. They're the blood of the dragons and more, and all the other things, dinosaurs and whatnot, who have come to fertilize the garden that made this Eden grow. The earth itself is an ark. It's a place to log life force. We are here to leave our frequency into the library. So if you're here right now, you're here to fulfill promises. You're here to help set the foundation for the next epoch, which is the next 7,000-year cycle. And we are right now at this time, at the moment, 7 years into the cycle of 1,000-year new cycle that started with the last wave, which was in 2018. The year after I went down to do the work with the dragons. Now, the work with the dragons in 2017 in New Zealand was this. I went down there to finish finding these dragons that needed to be taken home, but I didn't know I went down to find the dragons that had the key to the ones that were sleeping. When the fall happened, and those of us who were here before the fall, at the time of the fall, knew that these lower world dragons that came in could have an evolutionary reversal effect on us. So we asked the elementals to sleep. I met with other people who were talking to tribal elders. The tribal elders had said to me they are aware that the elementals are sleeping, but they can't remember why. So the dragons reminded me that we had asked them to go to sleep at that time because we didn't want an evolutionary reversal. We didn't want lower world dragons mingling with these higher frequency ones that are ours. So then we came back hunting and couldn't find them. They slept for way longer than we ever planned for that to be happening. And all of this combined was creating a self destructive pattern in us. We were not feeling what we were doing enough. And feeling is a key to being. When you go into your senses and you feel that you are harming something, you won't want to harm it. When you have no sense of what you're doing, you harm it without thinking about it, sometimes unknowingly. We do that a lot with each other, and, and mistakenly so, but still not knowing. So I have a tremendous amount of compassion for all of us. We can't possibly know everything about ourselves or everything there is to know about life in general. So I just want you to know the divine feminine mother father energy of creation itself holds us in an incredible light of forgiveness and love. You are to be forgiven. In my angelic work, I also began to couple the dragons and the angels in my work together, the holies, the masters, all of the mother lines and the father lines, all of their names, and working with what I call the flowering light of creation. I've been drawing and painting light language since I was little, and I've been speaking it and singing it for a long time. So I brought with me these two rainbow dragons. One is the rainbow dragon from the Earth Mother, and this is from the Earth Core, the Earth Heart. When we bring love into the world from the Earth Dragon, it's to receive light for all of us. So I'm bringing in a gift from that dragon and gifts from the dragon above to invite all of you to receive this right now. So I'm going to bring some light to you right now from these two dragons. This other dragon is a celestial dragon outside of this universe, carrying pure light from a place and a space that is already whole and is non-dualistic and is already unified. Unified consciousness is everything to us because it's our next step in evolution. We are evolving into that, to be whole, to be unified, to no longer be fighting with anything, but to be resonating with our light and the truth of it. So that's the source. That's what God is, creator by all its names. All right. Okay, so I have just a few minutes left to give you this. Great. So drop into your heart. Close your eyes if it's more comfortable for you. I'm inviting you to receive the light, the rainbow dragons, and the purity of light and freedom from the celestial family of light.
Perfect, Kelley. I have 2 minutes. And I know there was some difficulty hearing both the bowl, the sound, and your voice. It's a microphone issue, but they got the vibration of it.
Okay.
So we have a couple of questions. We have 2 minutes. So beautiful. Thank you. What are powers of the dragon?
Well, they're different things because they're elementals. So it might be water, it might be air, it might be the breath itself. The sheng qi, as the Chinese say, sheng qi, dragon's breath. It might be the wind, it might be the sky and the clouds and the celestial energy. It might be spirituality and the essence of the ethers. It could be any and all of those things and more. Think about fire. For me, the golden dragons and the pink dragons, the rose dragons are the mother and the father lines. Think about energies as masculine and feminine. Everything in the known universe is male and female. So the energies are oftentimes channeling through. And while we don't need to isolate that to like just men or just women, because the energy of a thing in creation, when it unites and merges, becomes both. And there are singularities in creation. So in this moment right now, it's about discovering where your energy goes. I became initiated to the water. I do a lot of work with dragons with water. I went to the water yesterday and did prayers for our event with the water. And the water said to me, "Oh yes, thank you, because you're like the ocean of heaven. So thank you for being here to bring the ocean of heaven to this." And I realized, there's a deeper understanding about what water is when you go beyond the earth. There's water in all of creation throughout the universe and the multiverse, and it has origins. What is water is a very interesting meditation.
It certainly is. And we're at time. There are 2 more questions if you have time to answer them in the Q&A. And we just want to say thank you so much. That beautiful white dragon behind you, beautiful energy. Thank you so much.
I have one last thing before I answer a question. I'm offering a course. It'll be up on my website, lovewisdompower.com, on dragon communication or dragon awareness. And if any of you are called to it, you're welcome to join me and come. And I also have my own healing ministry and practice. If you're called to work with me, just reach out.
Thank you, Kelley. That was beautiful.
I say